ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतो सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादे पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaj is meeting with the Kumaras. And we are in the section where Kumaras, especially Sanat Kumar, is addressing the queries of Maharaj Prithu. So we come to the text 35. Text 35. तत्रापि मोक्ष एवार्थम् आत्यन्तिकया त्रैवर्ग्य अर्थयत् नित्यं कृतान्त भयसंयुतः. Translation.
Out of the four principles, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature, that is death. Purport: moksha or liberation has to be taken very seriously, even at the sacrifice of the other three items. As advised by Suta Goswami in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, religious principles are not based on success in economic development. Because we are very attached to sense gratification, we go to God, to the temple or churches for some economic reasons. Then again, economic development does not mean sense gratification. Everything should be adjusted in such a way that we attain liberation. Therefore, in this verse, liberation, moksha, is stressed. The other three items are material and therefore subject to destruction. Even if somehow we accumulate a great bank balance in this life and possess many material things, everything will be finished with death. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that death is the supreme personality of Godhead who ultimately takes away everything acquired by a materialistic person. Foolishly, we do not care for this. Foolishly, we are not afraid of death, nor do we consider that death will take away everything acquired by the process of dharma, artha, and kama. By dharma or pious activities, we may be elevated to the heavenly planets. But this does not mean freedom from the clutches of birth, death, old age, and disease. The purport is that we can sacrifice our interest in Traivargya, religious principles, economic development, and sense gratification. But we cannot sacrifice the cause of liberation. Regarding liberation, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti. Liberation means that after giving up this body, one does not have to accept another material body. To the impersonalist, liberation means merging into the existence of impersonal Brahman. But factually, this is not moksha because one has to again fall down into this material world from that impersonal position. One should therefore seek the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in his devotional service. That is real liberation. The conclusion is that we should not stress pious activities, economic development, and sense gratification, but should concern ourselves with approaching Lord Vishnu in his spiritual planets, of which the topmost is Goloka Vrindavan. where Lord Krishna lives. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is the greatest gift for persons who are actually desiring liberation. Hare Krishna.
Sangat Kumarji says, Tatrapi moksha evarkam. That yes, there are four principles, but amongst the four principles, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, liberation has to be taken very seriously. Right? Other three are subject to destruction by the stringent laws of the nature, that is, the death. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, moksha has to be taken very seriously, even at the sacrifice of other three items at times. Right? Why? Because when we are engaged in the activities of the moksha, chanting Hare Krishna, going to temple, doing services, right? What happens is that it takes time, it takes energy. And when we always think that, the year time, if I just put it in my business, if I put it in my studies, if I put it in, kahan se kahan pahunch jaunga, right? But no, the goal of the human form of life, again, it has to be age appropriate, that we always stress. The students has to focus on study. The person who is building career has to focus on upskilling, reskilling, cross skilling, and making his finances well. At the same time, activities of the liberation demands a cost in terms of attention, in terms of time, in terms of energy, and one should be happy to give understanding that only moksha is eternal. Other three principles, they vary and they are finished at the time of death. Srila Prabhupada quotes Suta Goswami that religious principles are not based on the success in economic development. Dharmasya hi apavargasya, right? And even when there is economic development, that should not be used for indriya priti. Kamasya na indriya pretir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jidnyasa nartho yascheha karmabhi. So one has to work very hard. One has to work hard and for the in, but whatever, very similar to the Bhagavad Gita principle. Kamasya na indriya pretir labho jiveta yavata. And this is how everywhere the moksha is being stressed here. And Srila Prabhupada says, while everything else is taken away at the time of death, Kala Kshaya Kritam Lokam. The Lord is Harihi, everything is taken away as death. But foolishly, especially in Kali Yuga, people are not afraid of death. They think they have different conceptions of death. They think that, oh, death means everything is over. Death means long sleep. One very famous investor, when he was about to die, very recently, he said, yeah, I know, it is just long, deep sleep. No, it is not long, deep sleep. We have to come back. We have to come back based on Jatasya Dhruva Mrityu, Dhruvam Janma Mritasya cha. Right? We have to come back again and complete the karma bandhana and everything else. Sometimes people feel liberation means just merging into the Brahman, but that is also not liberation. That is mukti, right? That is not liberation in the real sense. The liberation in the real sense, mukti means muktir hitvanyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthitihi. One has to be established. Prabhupada says, seek the shelter of the Supreme Lord and engage in devotional service. That is swarupena vyavasthitihi. And this is the conclusion. One should aspire for a better destination, which is beyond the Kuntha. And the place which is beyond Kuntha is called as Vaikuntha. And amongst the topmost of the Vaikuntha is where Lord Krishna resides, Golok Vrindavan. And one should aspire to attain Golok Vrindavan. Text 36. Pare vare chaye bhava guna vyatikaradanu न तेषां विद्यते क्षेमम् ईश विध्वंसिताशिषम्. Translation.
Translation: We accept as blessings different states of higher life, distinguish them from lower states of life, but we should know that such distinctions exist only in relation to the interchange of the modes of material nature. Actually, these states of life have no permanent existence, for all of them will be destroyed by the Supreme Controller. Purport: In our material existence, we accept a higher form of life as a blessing and a lower form as a curse. The distinction of higher and lower only exists as long as the different material qualities, gunas, interact. In other words, by our good activities, we are elevated to the higher planet, to a higher standard of life, good education, beautiful body, etc. These are the results of pious activities. Similarly, by impious activities, we remain illiterate, get ugly bodies, a poor standard of living, etc. But all these different states of life are under the laws of material nature through the interaction of the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. However, all these qualities will cease to act at the time of the dissolution of the entire cosmic manifestation. The Lord therefore says in Bhagavad Gita 8.16, Aha am brahma bhuvana lokah punaravartino arjunah mam upetyatu kaunte punarjanma na vidyate. Even though we elevate ourselves to the highest planetary system by the scientific advancement of knowledge or by the religious principles of life, great sacrifices and fruitive activities at the time of dissolution, these higher planetary systems and life on them will be destroyed. In this verse, the words Isa Vidavamsitsam indicate that all such blessings will be destroyed by the Supreme Controller. We will not be protected. Our bodies, either in this planet or in another planet, will be destroyed. And again, we will have to remain for millions of years in an unconscious state within the body of Mahavishnu. And again, when the creation is manifested, we have to take birth in different species of life and begin our activities. Therefore, we should not be satisfied simply by a promotion to the higher planetary system. We should try to get out of the material cosmic manifestation, go to the spiritual world, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our highest achievement. We should not be attracted by anything material, higher or lower, but should consider them all on the same level. Our real engagement should be in inquiring about the real purpose of life and rendering devotion service to the Lord. Thus, we will be eternally blessed in our spiritual activities, full of knowledge and bliss.
Yeah, it's a long purport. We'll
Yes,
read them.
yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Further, Sanat Kumarji says, we accept as the blessing different status of higher life, distinguishing them from the lower status of life. Right? We are always, say, what is material progress? Material progress simply means changing the status of life. Right? People want to, from the hut, they want to come to 1 BHK, from there want to go to 3 BHK, from there people want to go abroad, from abroad people want to go, the Mars planet. People are increasing the status of life. But from the ultimate perspective, change in the status is only in the relation to the interchange of the modes of material nature. Right? And all these statuses of life have no permanent existence. They have no permanent existence. For all of them will be Vidvamsita, Isha, Ashisham. They will be Isha, the Supreme Lord, only going to do Vidvamsa of all this in the due course of time. Right. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, we accept the higher form of life as a blessing and lower form of life as a curse. Somebody has a richness, that is accepted as, oh, such a fortunate person, Somebody is poor. But these distinctions of higher and lower, they only exist due to the material qualities, three modes of material nature. By good activities, urdhvam gacchanti sattvastha, one is promoted upwards, madhye tishtanti rajasaha. And similarly, by the interactions of the three modes of material nature, one attains the different bodily forms and the features within that form and the facilities. All, right? Form, feature, and facilities. They are attained by the karma sanyogam. Like, somebody, Prabhupada writes here, somebody is born extremely beautiful. Somebody is born extremely knowledgeable. Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribihi. One is born very, very famous. Right? All this is coming because of the pious activities in the previous life. Not only in the human form of life. You will see, there will be, let's not take example of the dog, but let's take some another example now. There will be some rabbit who will be loitering in jungle and always being chased by so many jackals. And there may be another rabbit who is born in the house of a billionaire and he will be enjoying, all different kinds of facilities. So the form comes because of the three modes of material natures and karma. The features within that form, they come accordingly, and the facilities, they also come accordingly. Of course, there is a role of prayatna, there is a role of endeavor, but that is a very limited role of endeavor. Bhagavad Gita says there are 5 causes, and the Daiva, the Pancham cause, that is very important. And this understanding this, a devotee does not necessarily work extremely hard simply the changing the status of one's life. He devotee is Dhananjay. Many times when we do financial planning, devotees come and they are so satisfied, and we tell people, Prabhuji, थोड़ा बढ़ाना पड़ेगा आपको लाइफ में, right? You have to become धन. I write this to people, Dhananjay bano. Nowadays, even nowadays General Kamwali is earning some 20-30,000 rupees, and her husband is on some Uber driver. He is earning some 60-70,000 rupees. It's a joint family. 3-4 people are working. Saas is also working. So, I mean, understanding the reality of the life is there. At the same time, one should not put all one's energy only towards changing the status of one's life. Why? Because at any status, abrahma bhuvanal loka punaravartino arjuna mamupetyudu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. From one planet to another, from one form to another, from one facility to another, there is janma mrityu jara vyadi. This is not pessimism, this is realism. Right? Of course, the same Bhagavatam also talks about Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. That how so one has to just change the gear properly and come in sync with the plan of the Supreme Lord, and then one can actually save oneself from Isha Vidvamsha Ashitam. Isha Vidvamsha Ashitam means ultimately everything will be destroyed. One day, one devotee was asking question, Maharaj, when we get the ultimate peace? And there Radhanath Swami Maharaj was answering this question. He said that when Mahavishnu inhales, you will get the ultimate peace. Right? There is a pralaya, everybody is just taken in the body of Mahavishnu, and for millions of years, a living entity will remain in the body of Mahavishnu. Again, Yasyai Kanishvasita Kalam Athavalambya. Again, he will be thrown off and he will continue the cycle of samsara. So, understanding this, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, one takes moksha very seriously. Again, needless to say, it has to be age appropriate. Student has to study very hard. One has to build one's career very well. Not just about my life, one has to consider about one's contribution in the society, positive contribution in the society. But one has to take moksha, or the 4th principle of life, also very seriously. Yeah, please continue.
Regulated human civilization promotes dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. In human society, there must be religion. Without religion, human society is only animal society. Economic development and sense gratification must be based on religious principles. When religion, economic development, and sense gratification are adjusted, liberation from this material birth, death, old age, and disease is assured. In the present age of Kali, however, there is no question of religion and liberation. People have taken interest only in economic development and sense gratification. Therefore, despite sufficient economic development all over the world, dealings in human society have become almost animalistic. When everything becomes grossly animalistic, dissolution takes place. This dissolution is to be accepted as Isha Vidvansita Shisham. The Lord's so-called blessings of economic development and sense gratification will be conclusively dissolved by destruction. At the end of this Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as the incarnation of Kalki, and his only business will be to kill all human beings on the surface of the globe. After that killing, another golden age will begin. We should therefore know that our material activities are just like a childish play. Children may play on the beach, and the father will sit and watch this childish play. The construction of buildings with sand, the construction of walls, and so many things. But finally, the father will ask the children to come home. Then everything is destroyed. Persons who are too much addicted to the childish activities of economic development and sense gratification are sometimes especially favored by the Lord when he destroys their construction of these things. It is said by the Lord, Yashaham anugrahamami harishe tad dhanam shanay. The Lord told Yudhishthira Maharaj that his special favor is shown to his devotee when he takes away all the devotee's material opulences. Generally, therefore, it is experienced that Vaishnavas are not very opulent in the material sense. When a Vaishnava, pure devotee, tries to be materially opulent and at the same time desires to serve the Supreme Lord, his devotional service is checked. The Lord, in order to show him a special favor, destroys his so-called economic development and material opulences. Thus, the devotee, being frustrated in his repeated attempts at economic development, ultimately takes solid shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord. This kind of action may also be accepted as Ishavish Vidvansita Shisham, whereby the Lord destroys one's material opulences but enriches one in spiritual understanding. In the course of our preaching work, we sometimes see that materialistic persons come to us and offer their obeisances to take blessings, which means they want more and more material opulences. If such material opulences are checked, such persons are no longer interested in offering obeisances to the devotees. Such materialistic persons are always concerned about their economic development. They offer obeisances to saintly persons or the Supreme Lord and give something in charity for preaching work with a view that they will be rewarded with further economic development.
Yeah,
However,
so we will take a small break here. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains that a regulated human civilization promotes dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Right. And there has to be religion. Without dharma, the life is simply animalistic life. And the problem is that because the animals have the base instinct and the basic intelligence, animals will not degrade beyond being animalistic. But the human, when they become devoid of dharma, and because they have a higher intelligence, which goes beyond just ahara, nidra, ityadi, what happens is that the degradation of the human society will be far greater and the animals will look like humans, right? And therefore, Mahabharata says, right? आहार निद्रा भयमैथुनं च सामान्यमेतत् पशुभिर्नराणां धर्मो हि तेषाम् अधिको विशेषो धर्मेण हीन right pashubhir samana. Economic development and sense gratification must be based on religious principles, otherwise what happens, there is a wholesale destruction everywhere. Further, Prabhupada writes here that currently there is a sufficient economic development all over the world. But despite the sufficient economic development everywhere, all we see that people have just become almost atheistic, animalistic, and thus everything has become very grossly animalistic. And there are wars and everything else. And this is what the Isha Vidvamsha Ashitam. This is the Isha Vidvamsha. You know that because somebody may say, why Isha is looking for Vidvamsa? Prabhupada gives an example. Just like, the parents sometimes take children to the seashore and the child is engrossed in making the sand castles. And then, they have gone 4 o'clock in the evening and the child is making till 9 o'clock. And by making the sand castles, he's like, completely forgotten his hunger, thirst, sleep. He's just making castle after castle after castle. And now it is going to be a night. Parents will become angry. The child is not ready to come. The parents will only vidvamsa. They will say, hey, nothing happens, They will just destroy all this castle and drag the child to the house. Right. Similarly, when the living entity comes to material world, living entity is simply happy making plans. This plan after that plan. Right. And thus, the Lord destroys such plans time to time. It is like a very kind parents, they are destroying the sand castle so that the child should come home safely in the night. And the child should be taken care. Living entity has given up the Vaikuntha, has given up the eternal spiritual abode, has come to material abode and making so many plans. And these plans at times, they are checked by the will of the Supreme Lord. And especially for the devotees. Yasyaham anugrannami harishe tadhanam shanaihi. If our material advancement is going to come in the way of our spiritual advancement, and if we are a sincere devotee, right, if we are sincere and Krishna has noticed our sincerity, and if our material advancement, the endeavors of the material advancement, they are going to come in our spiritual advancement, Krishna will personally destroy our material advancement. Yasyaham anugrannami harishe tadhanam shanaihi. And therefore, a devotee of the Lord is always conscious of, giving optimal endeavors for one's material activities and giving optimal time and endeavor for one's spiritual activities. And one has to plan one's life accordingly. It's a lifestyle balance. Prabhupada says generally Vaishnavas are not very opulent in the material sense, right? But when a Vaishnava tries materially opulent and at the same time desires the service to the Supreme Lord and neglects such a service, then such thing will happen unless a devotee takes, Prabhupada's words, solid shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And then Prabhupada says, when we are preaching, many times people come and they say that, Swamiji, give us blessings. One day, Prabhupada was sitting like that. Prabhupada was traveling in the train, and all the Prabhupada's disciples, sannyasi disciples, and brahmacharis, they were sitting around. ISKCON during Prabhupada's time was mostly temple based, and mostly it was like one becomes devotee means one has to shave head and just be in the temple. That was ISKCON. And one some Marwadi kind of a person, he came, very pious person, and he came to Swamiji and he fell at the feet of Prabhupada and he said that, Swamiji, please give me blessing. And Prabhupada was in a very jovial mood. Prabhupada said, look around, this is my blessing. And then Prabhupada showed all the shaved heads. Prabhupada said, do you want this blessing? And then this man said, no, Swamiji, not this blessing, give me regular blessing. Okay. So Prabhupada is just joking here about that. Yeah, please continue.
However, one is sincere in his devotional service, the Lord obliges the devotee to give up his material development and completely surrender unto him. Because the Lord does not give blessings of material opulence to his devotee. People are afraid of worshipping Lord Vishnu because they see that the Vaishnavas who are worshippers of Lord Vishnu are poor in superficial material opulence. Such materialistic persons, however, get immense opportunity for economic development by worshipping Lord Shiva, for Lord Shiva is the husband of the goddess Durga, the proprietor of this universe. By the grace of Lord Shiva, a devotee gets the opportunity to be blessed by the goddess Durga. Ravana, for example, was a great worshipper and devotee of Lord Shiva. And in return, he got all the blessings of goddess Durga, so much so that his whole kingdom was constructed of golden buildings. In Brazil, in this present age, huge quantities of gold have been found. And from historical references in the Puranas, we can guess safely that this was Ravana's kingdom. This kingdom was, however, destroyed by Lord Ramachandra. By studying such incidents, we can understand the full meaning of Isha Vidvamshita Sham. The Lord does not bestow material blessings upon the devotees, for they may be entrapped again in this material world by continuous birth, death, old age, and disease. Due to materialistic opulences, persons like Ravana become puffed up for sense gratification. Ravana even dared kidnap Sita, who was both the wife of Lord Ramachandra and the goddess of fortune, thinking that he would be able to enjoy the pleasure potency of the Lord. But actually, by such action, Ravana became Vidvamshita, or ruined. At the present moment, human civilization is too much attached to economic development and sense gratification and is therefore nearing the path of ruination. Hare Krishna.
So the Prabhupada concludes the purport. It's a long purport, right? Prabhupada writes that when one is sincere in devotional service, then one has to optimally try for material progress. So this is important for a devotee. And more so, progressively one is moving towards 45, 50, 55, 60 in that realm of life. So how we always tell students that as a student, you have to work extremely hard. And of course, chant some 4 rounds, 8 rounds, become a devotee. And then when you go to job, prove yourself very well. And then eventually one has to come out of this mire, material entanglement, and become more and more dedicated towards the Supreme Lord. All the while remaining, the basic devotee and trying to improve one's devotional service. And then there is a beautiful comparison between Vaishnavas and Shaiva. So Vaishnavas, who are devotees of Lord Vishnu, are not very materially rich. Vis-a-vis the devotees of Lord Shiva, they attain the material prosperity because Lord Shiva easily grants material prosperity. And the beauty is that Lord Shiva, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambho, he himself is a Vaishnava and he also follows the principles of Vaishnavism and he himself is not very rich. Although all the material riches, right, they are controlled by Durga Devi, but Lord Shiva himself is Aniketaha, he is like without any house, moving everywhere. Here you will see all the symptoms of uh, not very rich devotee in the life of Vaishnava. Prabhupada writes, Ravana became so opulent and became so arrogant. His entire city was made up of gold. And Prabhupada quotes here Brazil. Generally, we know Sri Lanka, but here there is a Kalpa Bheda. Kalpa Bheda means different days of Brahma. The Lord appears at different place, and Ravana also takes birth somewhere. So one of the Kalpa looks like Ravana took birth in Brazil, and Brazil was Sri Lanka, that side. And the entire kingdom was made up of gold. But this material opulence made him puffed up. He captured Mother Sita, wanted to enjoy with the potency, the pleasure potency of the Lord, and thus became Isha Vidvamsita, being destroyed by Isha. And similarly, Prabhupada says, without religion, dharme nahina. Current modern time material civilization, human civilization is going to that side only. Isha Vidvamsita, just destroying on the path of ruination. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prabhu.